Welcome back to Winterberg in Germany's Hochsauerland for the final time this weekend. Race 4 of the BMW IBSF 4-man bobsleigh World Cup is just a few minutes away. And after a nice little dry break between the heats, the rain has returned to greet our sliders. In the background, you can just see one of the forerunners completing their run, making sure the timing system works, the track is safe and okay. And there is the view of the track up the hillside with the lights on. Martinhaven and Anvanjenhuis from Belgium, a familiar place, and for all the sliders, predominantly from Europe actually, but this is your local track as a Belgian or a Dutch slider, so lots of friends and family always came to see you here.
Always lots of fans and family that came to see us. It's closest place you can be to the western lowlands. So it's only 3 hours away for us, so we always had a lot of friends coming.
So it must have been weird in the last couple of seasons not to have your mum, not to have your grandma and your friends, and I mean,
Absolutely.
People would come in busloads.
Yeah, they used to come in busloads, sponsors and friends, family always came to cheer for us, and the last couple of years with COVID, it just hasn't been the same. And it's very nice to see that a lot of people came out, even though it's very rainy, humid and wet. It's a good thing for athletes that we're allowed to come back here.
Final view down the track. The first 4 corners pretty much decide everything, don't they? By here, you're either up or you've blown it.
Exactly. That's all where you can get the speed. And down from there, it's all dependent on what you did on the top of the track. You can only lose speed. It's very hard to gain speed on this track. And it only starts dropping really from this curve 8, 9, these big pressures, and that's where you get to the top speed. But all these little mistakes at the top of the track, they will have decided if you get to that high speed or not, if you get robbed of the speed. And then big uphill curve 14, by then you cannot change anything anymore unless you decide to roll it out, but that wouldn't affect your time too much. But it's definitely dominant what you do in the start and how you carry that start speed and what you do in the upper part of that flat track here, as you can see. Curve 3 there.
You can see most of the track is covered by roof. There is a short period between leaving the start roof and getting down to corner 0 where it's very wet indeed, with a river coming down from the Loon start. Well, last time out in Lake Placid, 3rd place, Christoph Hafer, grabbing his 2nd World Cup medal of the North American Tour. Hafer really starting to become a medal contender now with every outing.
He doesn't have the same super fast starts than his teammates do, but he has shown that he's an excellent driver and he can really find speed along the track.
Francesco Friedrich, again in top form in North America. He won in Whistler, he won in Park City, and he was in the hunt in Lake Placid as well. Didn't lead after the first heat, but a good run put him into the leader's box with 1 to go. And that one was Great Britain's Brad Hall.
Yeah, actually Michael Vogt was also there in that mix. They had a mishap at the start, so he was out of the mix for medals. But Brad Hall put down a stellar run, and he came away with the gold with his team, and it was a first win for him in World Cup.
Absolutely. A big day. They'd been knocking on the door, and in fact they've done the same here. They've been the silver medalist behind Francesco the last 2 races on this track. In 2-man and 4-man, Team GB Brad Hall has been very much a contender. Well, in the first heat, it was Austria's Markus Treichel who posted the 3rd fastest run.
His team was showing really good starts. A lot of the teammates of Benny Meyer, who joined Team Treichel now, and they really accelerate him at the start, and he can drive it down. He showed us that he has really good lines already in North America, but definitely here in Winterberg as well.
Yeah, he's 100th ahead of 4th, he's 200 ahead of 5th, he's 700ths ahead of 6th. There's a tight battle going on, and he's only 1300ths behind Christoph Hafer, who lies in the silver medal position.
Yeah, with his 6th fastest start, he managed to get 2nd fastest speed at the end of the track and brought it into 2nd place, 1500ths behind our current leader. Who else than Francesco Friedrich?
Well, Francesco, watch his body language compared to the legs you can see behind him, just basically keeping pace with the sled and leaping in, but they still gave him the 2nd fastest, 3rd fastest start of the competition, with 3 men hoofing it off the top. And once you put Francesco in the sled, whether he's injured or not, he hasn't forgotten how to drive.
No, he hasn't forgotten how to drive, and he has an excellent team behind him who know how to ride this sled. They've been working together for such a long time, so you can really see that pays off in aerodynamics and sliding position.
Yeah, and he's just a great driver. He knows how to keep the speed alive early on, and he knows where to put the sled. 1500s up over Hafer, and then look at that. Trikel, Vogt, Lochner and Hall. That's basically a 700th of a second dead heat. Dvorak and Taylor, 100th apart, 600th ahead of rookie Calendar, who's 200th ahead of Friedrich, and then another barely 10th covering the next couple of sleds as well. So lots going on. Francesco Friedrich is struggling with that injury, adductor strain from sprint training in the Christmas New Year break, but with the guys like this behind him, he has plenty of opportunity. I mean, third fastest start. They outstarted 13 teams who have 4 healthy athletes. It just shows how competitive that
these guys
team is.
are.
Yeah.
And if he would be healthy and be pushing with them, he would be right in the mix with Bradley Hall and Team Chipolis, who did a 5:06 and a 5:07 in the first heat. First time that Team Hall was outpushed, I think, by the Latvian team who joined us here.
Yeah, Brad Hall and Taylor Lawrence were only outpushed by Johannes Lochner and Georg Fleischhauer yesterday.
So it will be interesting to see if any of these teams try and look for an extra 100 to be the fastest pushing team of this day.
Yeah, well, they all will, I'm sure. I mean, Friedrich and his crew are always looking at records, start records, track records, win records. They just want everything. So it's not that they're greedy, it's just that they are kind of competitive.
Yeah, and brakemen take a lot of pride in having the fastest push of the competition, so that's really worth fighting for, and they also should get the mention of an excellent push start.
You can see lots of umbrellas still up. It is still raining pretty hard here. Not quite the rivers of water running down the luge track on the right-hand side. That's the men's luge start. The doubles and the women's luge start comes in a little lower down, corner 3. And that big start ramp is what gives the luge their acceleration.
And here on the screen, the big curve 2.
Yeah.
And on the front of the screen, curve 3, looking really flat, so you can see you have to be very precise there.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel level when you're walking up the hill, particularly when you get to the top of it there, but to the sliders, it is very level indeed. Adam Dobes of the Czech Republic is our first sled on ice, and we will go in reverse order so that the race leader is last to go. Both heats count. Francesco Friedrich, as so often is the case, will go last to defend his first heat lead.
And Adam was the first off the hill in the first heat, and he will be the first again to set the pace.
Race 4, the BMW IBSF 4-man bobsleigh World Cup. We are on Winterberg in Germany. Adam Dobes of the Czech Republic with Michal Dobes, Andrej Radzil, and new boy Antonin Vijas behind. Second World Cup starters driver for Adam Dobes after making his debut in Park City, Utah. So his result there, an 11th place finish. He is in 16th here in Winterberg.
They got to a 5:21 in the first heat. Quick load of the pilot and a little drift out of the grooves. Managed it just coming out of curve 0 with a little bit of a slide and parallel tap on the wall going into curve 1. Nice and quiet there. Bringing it around curve 3. Middle late entrance into 4 gives him all the time to turn it, and has the parallel entrance into 5. Looking good so far, no touches there. Slight touch going into Kreisel. And a little bit of a wobble there too. See a lot of spectators and crowds standing there in the entrance of curve 9. Drifting there, going late into 11, middle into 12. Brings it down out of 13, uphill climbing, and really shortcutting the exit of the finish curve there, 55.68.
All right, so nearly 0.3 of a second quicker than his first heat.
And it was looking like a much tidier run as well.
Yeah.
A little bit of a mistake out of curve 9 that cost him a little bit of speed and had made him hard work in 11, but he managed the labyrinths just fine.
Yeah, definitely fewer dramas in this run than in the first.
And here you can see that mistake of curve 9 made him wave through 11, dipping and rising. And that's why he was a little bit later there at the end of 13, having to work a bit harder and rubbing that wall, bumping into curve 14.
Good to see a second sled in the World Cup from Czech Republic as well. Dominik Dvorak has sort of ploughed his own furrow for the last 6 or 8 years since the retirement of Jan Verber. So Adam Dobes bringing a new, young lease of life. Li Chunjan next up for China. Just passed him about 15 minutes ago with his coach discussing the lines before he went back up for the second heat. Ding Song, Ye Jilong and Wu Qinxi, the most experienced man on the sled, is at the back. These guys went late in the run. They were 16th and last on ice. They'll have much better conditions in this second heat. And after a good, strong start, let's see if he can tidy up his line.
They were really impressive in the first heat with their start with a 5:13. And they repeat that start again. Clean looking curve 0, not a lot of driving there, but parallel touch going to curve 1. And some really impressive starting of this Chinese team. Far right, curve 3 and a slight skid going into 4. But puts it straight again, heading to 5. And out of 6, just touches that wall again before heading into Kreisel, like we've seen so many sleds do now.
Better speed than Adam Dobes. And he's chasing Mattia Variola of Italy, who'll be up next, who was only 200ths quicker.
Very nice looking exit there of curve 9, using curve 10 to get over early to 11. Good transitions there in the labyrinths.
Top speed 83.5 miles an hour. This is a quicker sheet of ice at the moment than we saw before.
And you can really see all the water in the track, especially at the finish. You can see all the water running down from the braking stretch to that curve.
55.03, that's the 9th fastest run of the competition so far, compared to a 55.42 in the first heat. So all of those discussions have certainly helped.
So a little bit far around curve 0, and that's why he touches on the right side of the track, left side of the screen. Working hard around curve 8, early parallel entrance in curve 9. Hard work there to get it on the lower parallel line. And here we can see him at the exit of 11. See all of the helmets of the guys in the back. And good smiles there.
Yeah, they don't care about the rain. They are the leaders. 2 sleds down, and only 200ths ahead of them, Mattia Variola and his Italian crew, Alex Pagnini, Fabio Batti, and Jose Abu. We were supposed to have 2 Italian sleds, but unfortunately, Patrick Baumgartner injured his back in training. I don't think badly, but enough to make it pretty much impossible to push and drive a sled. So wish him the best, and hopefully we'll see him in the World Championships in 3 weeks' time.
5:20 start, and really early onto that curve 0. Brings it parallel to curve 1. Best starting velocity. Help him on this upper part of the track. And very far around curve 3. Pretty high there at the exit. Just sliding a little bit sideways here and there. Just touching that inside wall, going into 6 and coming out of 6. And you can just hear the rattle of the sled, the ice being pretty bumpy.
Yeah, long skid there as well. He's gone from
there.
a couple of hundreds to 2 back. He's in trouble.
High there, middle to 12. I hope he doesn't, manages it quickly to get out of 13. And brings it out.
Yeah, loses half a second to the Chinese, 55.55.
A little less clean run than he had in the first heat.
Yeah, all the mistakes that he hoped to eradicate in training came back to haunt him there, didn't they?
Absolutely.
We talk about this so often that there
You can
is
see the disappointment.
almost no corner on the track that is taken in isolation. One leads to the next, leads to the next. And if you're late in one, it just compounds.
It just builds up and you need to react, and it's hard coming back from that, especially in a four-man. It has so much weight, so it just wants to keep going. And there, that end pressure, picking him up and then pushing him to that wall, making him wave all the way through 11, high at the exit. And then the crossover into curve 12 is a little bit more difficult. Sometimes it gets you in the end of the labyrinth, but he managed that really well.
Yeah, his mood matches the weather. Li Chunjan of China remains in the leader's box. Next up is Mihai Tente of Romania, who has a lead of 1100 of a second. Rookie Georg Yodash on the back of the sled, joining the veterans Ciprian Dorocci and relative newcomer Mihai Pakianu.
Very young team of Romania. He's been around for quite some time, only 24 years old.
I think he started when he was about 9, didn't he? 5:26 getaway for Mihai Tente and the crew.
He started competing in the Youth Olympic Games in 2016. Three guys sitting quite high up. Slight drift there as well. Going to curve 5, middle into 6, and a parallel touch going into Kreisel. Losing a little bit of ground compared to the Chinese sled.
Yeah, Li Chunjan had a really good second run.
Good exit there. Early parallel entrance into curve 11 will help him transition nicely through the labyrinths. Avoids that wall.
Doesn't have the speed of the Chinese sled. He's not going to hang on, is he? No. Into second place. Lee and the crew move up another spot.
And you can see the guys yelling to pull the brakes.
55.31 in the first heat, 55.31 in the second heat.
Well, he wins the prize of consistency.
Yeah, off a start that was just 100th of a second slower.
Quick load of the pilot, gets his feet caught up a little bit and then slides in.
As you pointed out, still a young crew, still relatively inexperienced.
Yeah,
and on the back in his first
back.
ever four-man World Cup race.
Yeah, trying to get his shoulders in the sled and then getting those push bars in. Hard work there at the exit of 13. Really making sure it comes off.
Mihai Pakianu there with the helmet off. He is the ex-skeleton slider in the team. Next up is Switzerland's Simon Friedrich. Greg Jones, Andy Haas, and on the back handles, Marco Leimgruber. Now, their advantage is slightly larger over Li Chunjan, a whole 0.2 of a second.
.521 in the first heat. And I think this team is really looking to improve on that. Some good pushers on the crew. 5:22, 100 slower, and a good manageable curve 1.
Yeah, again, dealt nicely with that zero kink, and you can see Greg Jones's helmet just sinking down after they got through there when they're on the little stretch down to turn 1.
Really trying to stay wide in the sled, and then you can see just like the long, tiny drift out of curve 4 into and there as well.
Yeah.
Just the back end sliding off curve 6 going to Kreisel. All tiny mistakes that just rob you of a little bit of speed build up. Good exit there. Parallel into 11. Oh, and there's a lot of force sideways in the back of the sled going up and down.
This is
into
going to
14.
be close. It's not close enough. The Chinese move up another spot. 55.26 for Simon Friedrich.
Very excited about that, the Chinese team. No big mistakes from Simon, but all just tiny mistakes that build up and just rob you of hundredths of a second.
Well, Lee's best result on this track is a 15th place. He is currently the leader with 11 to go. So they may even knock on the door of the top 10 here, Li Chunjan and the crew. So PBs is what it's all about for athletes.
And here the hard work out of curve 12, going into curve 13. Fast labyrinth, and you can see all the energy of the sled going in the wrong side. And here at the work hard as well to get it off, take that tap to parallel him out, and then slide uphill to the left hand, curve 14.
He's driving the nose down and the tail is sliding around behind him. It's almost like he's on ice or something. Next up then is our World Cup rookie, Jēkabs Kalenda, made his two-man debut yesterday. He's a young man from Latvia. And behind him, plenty of experience with Ivo Kleinberg's Lauris Kaufmanis. But new brakeman, Mareks Latstans, makes his World Cup debut here today as well.
The Latvians are known for their starts, but they have a little trouble there in the low. Still pretty high up there, 5:15, equaling their first heat start.
Yeah, and just like in the first heat, the guy at 2, Ivo Kleinbergs, cannot get safely and down into the sled. You can still see he's not quite comfortable behind the driver.
Well, it's a fairly new team, and they're a big drift as well going into curve 5. This new team probably doesn't have that much time in the foreman yet. Don't have a lot of starts together, so it's hard to get an efficient load into that sled.
Yeah, driver and the brakeman both in their World Cup
big
debut.
waves there. Oh, barely brings it off. Needs the woodwork to drive it off. Hard crossover from 11 to 12.
Kalenda, just 20 years old, will be here for the Junior Worlds next week, you'd assume. And across the line, only 800s back.
And the Chinese team is going wild.
Right, if they're still there when Francesco Friedrich starts to hit the
They will
ice,
go crazy.
I'm afraid my Chinese does not extend very far in terms of questioning, so they are having a great time. They are guaranteed at least an 11th place finish. His previous best on this track is 15th. So, again, watch the guy at 2, Ivo Kleinbergs. Can't get his legs around the driver's seat.
Yeah, his hand slips, and then that's why he's already in the sled, needs to push back up, and his legs aren't quite comfortable. And he needs to move there, all in the straightaway where there's no pressure. And here we have transition 8 to 9. Hard steer there, drives himself into the dip, and then it creates pressure, goes up and down again.
Yeah. He's watching the replay, and all the mistakes he knows he made, he's seeing some of them there.
As a young driver, he can learn from it.
Yeah, Jēkabs Kalenda is 3rd, behind Simon Friedli and our current leader, riding high and feeling no rain, Lee Chun-chan. Just 800s covering the top 3 at the moment, and that's absolutely typical of this track, how close some of the battles are, and we've got a lot more of that still to come as well, Anne.
Yeah, the Chinese team already took 4 places. Kalenda just dropped 2. It's just gonna be really tight racing, and everything can be changed in the next 10 sled.
Yeah, because the next 2 sleds up ahead of Kalenda only had a maximum a 700th of a second advantage. So if the 3 or 4 sleds that have just gone can make mistakes, so too can the next couple. Not sure they've ever spent that much time in the leader's box, certainly not on camera. Well done to everybody who's come out here. This is the first time that fans have been allowed here in Winterberg since the spring or the end of the 2019-20 season. So it's been a while for them being able to come here. There's part of the sort of collection of hotels and holiday chalets and stuff right on the edge of town, right by the track. We are right beside the town here, so it's a very easy track to get to. And as a result, Bobsleigh is quite a big sport in this small town, and lots of fans enjoying the opportunity to come out. It might be a wet, miserable Sunday, but they are enjoying their racing.
Yeah, and being the end of the Christmas holidays, there's a lot of tourists in town, and they also like to look at some racing here.
Yeah, bit of skiing in the morning, and once they're soaked through, go and watch the bobsleigh in a dry set of clothes. And you can see how close fans get to the track. If you've never been to a bobsleigh track, if you have the opportunity to go, do so. Take a ride, absolutely. But if there's a race, then you can see, you can be right beside the action. You could literally reach out and touch them. Highly not to be advised. Final 10 sleds of the four-man bobsleigh World Cup race here in Winterberg, Germany. Martin Havenen and Van Nieuwenhuis watching the action as Taylor Austin and the crew get ready to go. Davidson D'Souza, Cyrus Gray and Shaquille Murray-Lawrence are the power unit behind him.
5:28. 7th fastest start, but 3rd fastest velocity. So you can see this team has been working in the ice house together.
Getting that acceleration. That's one of the advantages that the Canadians have. They still have that ice house in Calgary, although there's not a track to go sliding there. You have to drive in Whistler and push in Calgary.
And a clean-looking run so far. A little bit of a drift there, trying to avoid that wall going into Kreisel. And there as well, just a little bit of pressure pushing him into a skid, and hard work to put it on line there, and drifting away from the entrance of 11, going up and down. It's going to be a difficult transition going to 12, and hard work out of 13.
Was 2800s up. This is going to be very close. Could be in single digits. 1100s in front. So they push the Chinese athletes out of the leaders box. Again, not beyond the bounds of possibility. The Chinese crew, Li Chunjian, only 1100s behind Taylor Austin. Not beyond the bounds of possibility that Lee and his boys may yet get a top 10, because the next sled down, Dominic Dvorak, only went 100th quicker than Taylor Austin in the first heat.
And here you can see how low he is dipping under the lines in curve 11, rising really high. And that puts him in the middle of curve 12, makes it harder to transition to 13. And he has to work hard at the exit to get the sled off, take that tap, and then go uphill. Coach Elfie Williamson, my former teammate there.
Yep.
Good job, guys. This is fun.
He's
still enjoying the
Yeah,
trip.
he is. Hey, listen, anytime you're in the top 10, it's good times. Just ahead of him by 100th of a second was the Czech Republic's Dominic Dvorak, David Bureš, the new boy on the sled, the former rugby player, with Andre Radl and debutant Antonin Vijas. I beg your pardon, that's the wrong crew. So Dvorak and his boys with a 100th of a second advantage. Dominik Zaleski on the back behind Jakub Prochaska and David Bureš. So the driver and the brakeman, both former Czech 100-meter record holders. 5:17, that's another big start.
And fastest velocity out of that start. And you can see the fans along the track.
You can also see some athletes in team jackets now. They are early arrivals for training for the Junior Worlds, which starts in earnest tomorrow morning. So a few British skeleton athletes.
Little skittish, 4, 5, 6. And that's why he doesn't have that highest speed he had at the top, that he doesn't carry it along the track. Down to 4th fastest speed, still has an advantage.
Like in the first heat, the sled is sliding around a lot behind him, though.
Up and down, waving through 11 as well.
Still 1400s up. Should be enough to take the lead from Taylor Austin. And it is enough. 55.04, so at least 9th place for Dominic Dvorak. His previous best here, a trio of 7th place finishes. Always happy with that start.
This run is 100 slower of the best run in this heat so far from the Chinese team. So that really shows that he cleaned up that second run. And there you can see the little slide skid going into Kreisel. Up there in the first wave, but controls the second wave a bit better. But there's pressure in his sled, just drifting away from the entrance of curve 8. And pretty high at the exit of 14, but manages it well.
Lots of heads up there coming out the final corner. So if they're 100th behind in the next run, that's part of the reason. Dominic Dvorak, the leader then, with 8 sleds remaining. And next up, Cedric Follador. Didn't race in the 2-man yesterday, but here in the 4-man, Nicola Mariani, Dominic Hufschmidt, and Marco Durig on the sled.
Marco did a lot of races with Michael Konen,
Yep.
who retired after the games.
In fact, Marco's first career start was here in November 2012 in Europa Cup. This is only his 6th four-man World Cup start.
5:21, 100 faster than in the first heat. And a good velocity around curve 0 into the upper part of the track. Really trying to stay middle there, going to curve 4. Nice entrance into 5. And a very smooth transition. Just that tiny wobble.
Yeah, same skid as we saw from Dvorak, but better speed. 1300s up from the first heat.
Early entrance into 8 and a nice parallel entrance into curve 9, using curve 10 to bring him over to the early entrance in 11. Crossing over really nicely into that labyrinth. High speed, 135.8.
Really nice looking run from Cedric Follador, 54.74.
And 2600s faster than he was in the first heat, and a really nice run. Really showing his form and skills all season.
And that is the 6th fastest run at the competition so far. Only the top 5 in Heat 1 went quicker. So still speed to be found in the track.
And here you can see the back end of his sled stays on curve 6 a little bit too long. That's why it's pushed into that skid and hits the wall before Kreisel. High there in the beginning, and a good sliding position of the guys of his crew. Coming up here at the end of 11. Good control.
Big smile from Cedric Follador. He is our race leader with 7 to go. And Follador's previous best here, previous best in the World Cup rather, 5th place in Lake Placid, but that will be a benchmark for him here, having not raced in World Cup here in Winterberg before. So, ahead of Follador, young Latvian driver Emils Kipulis, with Dove Springs, Mats Miknis and Egers Nemo behind him. Very experienced crew, particularly Springers and Miknis. The legends of Latvian bobsleighing, Mats Miknis.
Fastest pushing team of the first heat, 5:07, 100 slower than they did before this afternoon. A nice looking run so far in curve 0 and 1. Parallel from 2 to 3. Trying to correct it there out of curve 4, just the tiniest of skids. But no touching on the wall so far. Just avoids that touch there going into Kreisel's 2nd highest speed. And just drifting off the exit of Kreisel. Late going into curve 9, but good control there. Using curve 10 to get early to 11.
Gap over Cedric.
A lot of energy there. Oh, not come back up. And you could see just that set having a lot of pressure in 11. And now let's hope someone of the track workers will get these guys to a standstill, because going backwards down the hill is not a fun feeling.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, and we can see one of the
That's Haas, Andreas Haas sprinting off down there.
I think it's one of the guys of Follador's team.
That could well be, actually.
Nicola, I think.
Nicola Mariani.
Guys are climbing out.
Well, most bobsleighers know what that feels like, and nobody likes to see it. You understand that a crash is part of the sport occasionally, even for the very best. Well, his gap over Cedric Follador was coming down. And then, as we talked about before, when you get one corner wrong, that multiplies, and particularly further down on the track here, when you get out of the Kreisel, you're doing 60, 70 miles an hour.
And here you could see all the energy of the sled going to the left side. He tries to avoid the tap and then goes late, and there's no more room to turn the sled. All the energy back end of the sled. It's just
nearly came back up.
Really rough going up there. And the helmets hit that wall.
Yeah. So that will definitely have rung their bell. I mean, the guys getting thrown around there like rag dolls in the sled. They're clinging on desperately, trying to stay in. And then the long final corner, heads and
see the
shoulders on
helmets
the
out.
ice.
And then you can see the gouges on the track from the sled.
There are the Swiss crew helping push the sled back up. Samuel Tsoupulis of Latvia. Not the result that they were hoping for, but such, I'm afraid, is sport. Occasionally it goes wrong in a big way. Dove Springs Muds Miknes have probably been through the ringer a couple of this. There's Muds at the front of the sled. Dove Spring is putting his arm around his driver. Both of those guys started in the 2015-16 season. They have seen all of this before.
And luckily they're all okay.
Yep.
Normally all the brakemen wear protective vests under their race suits, Kevlar vests that protect you from ice burns.
A lot of the time they don't, though. So,
I think it's about time they put it in the rule book.
Absolutely,
that it should be
100% agree.
obligated.
We don't
to
allow
wear
them
one.
to choose whether or not to wear a helmet. Berm's vest should be mandatory. Well, there we go. We'll have a 5-minute track hold. There will be a few little gouges in the ice, and those will normally be slushed over with a little mixture of water and ice. A bit like a smoothie, and that freezes into the gaps. What you don't need, Anne, as a driver, is your runners to drop into a groove and the sled to start being steered by the track. You want it to go where you need it to go, not where the previous gouges take you.
Exactly. You want to decide where you put the sled and not be taken into a groove and not be able to correct anything while you're driving the bob.
Track workers will make a quick inspection. Track announcer there just saying that all the guys are okay. So a round of applause from the fans.
I see former brakeman Annie Strak.
Okay, and Kristen Strack.
Yeah.
She's had a couple of wins on this track. It is a big sort of gathering, isn't it? You know, it's a home base for an awful lot of the German athletes, in the same way that Altenberg is or Oberhof is, you know, in Thuringia. But yeah, you do see a lot of familiar faces here.
Yeah, and it really is a sliding family, and everyone loves coming back to this place and being able to cheer for the other athletes. And even when you're retired, you'd like to come here and just be part of the sliding family again.
See how matte the surface on the track is, how frosty it's starting to look, and that's not going to help speed at the start. Track hold is part of the process. The sled coming to the line, but sitting on the ice a little longer, perhaps, than they would like. In the green jacket, just behind the cameraman, you can see Manny Schulte. He's our race director. There with Peter from the jury, just communicating with everybody down the track. That's the countdown to the start for Brad Hall and his crew has begun. So Johannes Fry, Graham Richardson, the coach there, returning from half a dozen years coaching in Canada to be the coach for Team GB. It's been a good start to the season so far for Brad Hall and the crew in 2-man and 4-man. First ever World Cup win in 4-man, last time out in Lake Placid. And in this tight battle for the medals, covered by just a few hundredths of a second.
And really interesting to see is that the brake...
Wow!
504! Very high speed and a really great push. And I was just mentioning that the brakeman doesn't do the traditional fall in movement. I wonder if it's because Taylor is so wide that he cannot do the movement, and he's just pushing it off the block like a pilot would do.
Yeah, like a wheelbarrow. Nice top section from Brad Hall, and that's what really cost him time in the first heat, in the 2-man and in the 4-man this afternoon.
Just the slightest of drifts there coming out of Kreisel, but a big advantage. 5500s, and there backhand touches and puts him into a skid going into 11.
We had 2400s from the first heat. He's got to keep extending this if he wants a medal. Only the third best speed at the bottom. Brad Hall, 54.49. Well, that's a quarter second better than his first heat of 54.76. 54.49. Only Francesco Friedrich went faster in the first heat. So despite the frosting look at the start, there is still speed to be found in this track.
Definitely a better drive in the upper part of the track, and what a massive start from this crew.
Oh boy, oh boy.
And here, curve 9, down just a little bit too soon, gets a little bit of that end pressure, and that pushes his back end and then hits that wall, skids into 11.
And that's worth a tenth of a second at least.
By that time, you already have your maximal speed, or it's decided what your maximal speed will be, so it doesn't affect your speed as much as it would do a mistake in curve 0 or curve 1, but it's definitely killing your time.
Brad Hall leads, 5 to go. Who is going to take the medals here? This is going to be super tight. Yesterday's winner in the two-man, Johannes Lochner. Next up with Florian Bauer, Eric Bruckert, the new boy in the team. And there at the back, Christian Rasp. Not sure how many of Hansi's four-man sleds Christian has been the back of, but almost all of them. He is super fired up, Johannes Lochner, this weekend.
First heat, they had a 5:15. And I think they will try to put it below the 10s. 5:10.
To gain 500 of a second sounds like nothing. It's everything you've got plus a fraction more than you had in the first heat.
And I love how low they're all sitting. Very good siding position. A little bit of helmet there coming out of curve 3. Nice parallel line into 5.
He had 500s in hand over Brad Hall from the first heat.
Just a touch there, but highest speed coming into Kreisel.
This should put him in the lead. Not quite. 400s in it.
Good looking transition there from 9, 10 to 11. And a nice looking labyrinth.
300s.
Just
second best speed.
It's gonna be really close.
This could be a tie at the line. Oh! There's Georg Fleischauer, the big figure on the left, who won gold with Hansi yesterday. And the coach, René Spies. 15, 5:10 that was. So a 5:10 start, but just a few hundreds behind.
And here you can see how deep they are into the, buried into that sled, coming up at the exit of 11. And their hard work out of curve 13 to bring it down, taps the front bumper, and then the back bumper hits the wall as well. Little bit of lift off of that back runner. A lot of force being lost into the wall there.
Well, Hansi and Brad both having problems low down in the track. There's Greg Cackett from the British team. He called the two-man race with me yesterday. Now, Mikkel Vogt, 4th place, and tantalising close to a medal so many times already this season. Cyril Bieri, Silvio Weber, and Sandro Mikkel on the back there, the tall figure. They had a 14 first start. Can they get down into single digits as well? A 10.
Yes, 5:10. Oh, and then there, this touch out of curve 0, and it puts him into a long, soft skid that will rob him of a lot of speed that they built in their start.
Well, they were tied for the lead as they sat down 1200s back. By the time they get to the Kreisel, that'll be a quarter of a second gone.
Just wobbling from 3 to 4, tiny drift, from 4 to 5, a tiny drift. They're touching the right side of the entrance of Kreisel as well. Only 4th fastest speed.
Yeah. And he's going to be a long way adrift. There's the quarter-second deficit and only the 6th best speed. He's finding nothing. From here on in, he was accelerating in the first run. Can he bring it back? No.
He's going to lose some places with this run.
Yep, he's going to drop behind Hall and Lochner and only just ahead of teammate Cedric Follador. Again, one skid early on, and that's where you want the off-ramp. Okay, we're done.
And you just know it's going to kill your speed.
Yeah, I mean, never say never and everything, but you know when you've made the mistake, you can't find that speed again.
The load of the pilot. And you can see waiting for number 3, sitting down, but they're well out of the start grooves, which makes it harder to drive that curve 0. Doesn't do too much, and the curve itself drives into that wall. Back bumps, hits a little harder, and that's why he's put into that skid.
So Brad Hall and his crew offer their commiserations and congratulations. 3 to go. Wow, this could be a big, big moment for Markus Treichel with Sascha Stepan, Markus Sammer, and Sebastian Mitterer behind him. Markus Treichel has been having a very good start to the season in 5 previous World Cups here. His best has been a trio of 10th place finishes. This for a medal.
5:12, 5:13 they had in the first heat. 100 improvement, little touch there on the wall out of 0, but kept it parallel.
Has never had a 4-man World Cup medal, has never had a 2-man World Cup medal. He is in the red behind Brad Hall by 12 hundredths and a big
they're
ski.
trying to correct it. Also a little bit sideways between 5 and 6. Only 4th fastest speed going into Kreisel. A lot of pressure coming out of it.
And only 5th best coming out, 27 hundredths. The gap is growing at the moment. This is going to drop him behind Hall and Lochner and Mikael Vogt. He'll have to wait for another day.
Hard work to get out of 13. Back
Good
to 3rd
speed.
fastest speed.
But not enough. 4th place. Brad Hall and crew are in the medals, and Wolfie, Wolfgang Stampfer, and Markus Treichel and the crew will have to wait another day. It will be a top 6 finish, but right now it is not a medal. 54.89 slide. Giving away 33 hundredths to Brad Hall in that run.
Load of the pilot.
See the sled rocking and rolling as everybody gets in, and they're out of the drive lines.
Yeah, and here the work he had to do to come out of the labyrinth. 13.
Yeah, the brakemen are all about the push. The drivers are all about the drive. So 2 to go. We will not have a German sweep of the podium. We don't often have a German sweep of the podium in 4-man. Brad Hall, silver medalist in the last 2 races, is our current leader. Christoph Hafer with Michael Salzer, Matthias Sommer and Tobias Schneider looking to take the lead away. They have 0.2 of a second in hand.
5:15. Slight touch and drift, parallel drift.
Gets away with it as cleanly as Brad Hall. He's still got an advantage.
Long on curve 2 made him cross diagonally a little bit into curve 3. Parallel to 5.
And he's dropping time. He's going to have to be very good below the Kreisel.
That touch and drift going into Kreisel will not help him. There as well, just a tiny bit of pressure bleeding out of the sled.
900s back, the gap is starting to grow.
Doesn't have the speed and it's just a little unclean everywhere.
Only the 3rd best speed, it's not enough. Brad Hall is going to take another silver medal at least, he leads. 54.81. Well, 2 consecutive silvers in the last 2 outings on this track for Brad Hall. He was a silver medalist in Whistler, off the podium in 4th place in Park City, victorious in Lake Placid. 1 sled remains. Brad Hall is still the leader.
And nice pictures here of the push. Slow-mo, load, get the push bar down, drop in. And here you can see them bumping around in curve 11.
Yeah, kudos to the track workers who have kept this track alive through some pretty miserable weather for the last few weeks, and will have to do the same again for next week's Junior Worlds. Okay, so 1 man standing. He's won 7 times on this track. He has won the last 4 World Cup outings here. He is not running healthily. Look at him jog alongside the sled. Francesco Friedrich, powered by Torsten Margis, Candy Bauer and Alexander Schuller too. A 5:15 getaway.
And a lot of curve zero, kept it parallel, avoided the wall. 6th fastest velocity coming out of the curve zero.
3,500s in hand over Brad Hall from the first heat. 1,700s remain.
So we will have to drive it excellently.
He does make mistakes, but not very often.
And there, slight touch going into Kreisel, 3rd fastest velocity already.
But is there enough speed left in the track? Look, the speeds are dropping. 1,400s, he's not gaining any.
But he's not losing a lot of time either. I think he will keep this lead.
Whoa! 1,600s, he's letting it fly. It is going to be gold for Francesco Friedrich, his 8th win in Winterberg. A 3rd straight silver medal on this track for Brad Hall. And for Brad and the crew, their 3rd medal of the season. Injured or not, Francesco Friedrich is still the benchmark in bobsledding. How does he keep doing it? That is his 1/4 century of victories, his 25th 4-man World Cup win. His 14th World Cup here, and his 8th win.
Some incredible numbers for Team Friedrich.
Well, was it ever in doubt? Yes, it was. Was it ever in doubt in Francesco's head? Very, very slightly. Honestly, he talks quite openly about he always goes to the line thinking they can win.
And that's exactly the mindset he should have, and everyone should have.
Absolutely. Brad Hall is very much in that mindset right now as well. Silver medal from 6th in the first heat, but in the end, 3,500s back from Francesco Friedrich was just too much of a chasm, and the great German does it again. He wins here in Winterberg, where he has been so successful, not least because his pushing crew is always stunningly fast. And then we go to his home track for 2 weeks in Altenburg. Oh boy, I don't care how badly hurt he is, he can sit in and take medals there. Brad Hall takes 2nd, Hansi Lochner 3rd. Again, heartbreak for Christoph Hafer, and especially Marcus Treichel. Could so easily have been in the medals here. And Mickey Vogt, Cedric Follador, great racing from them. 8th place for Dominic Dvorak. I think that is possibly his best result at now. He's had 3 7th places. Taylor Austin, though, first time here, that's his best result. And Lee Chun-Jan, comfortably his best result here on this track. Well, we will possibly see Mihai Tenter and Jekabs Kalender and Ewos Chipoulis, as well as Adam Dobes, staying here for the Junior Worlds, which are next week, when we head to Altenburg for the first of 2 World Cup weekends in the Sächsische Schweiz, in the mountains close to the border with the Czech Republic. And that is very much home ice for Francesco Friedrich. Wife and kids will be there, family will be there, and he gets to sleep in his own bed for a few nights as well. And that can't hurt the R&R that he will need to rehabilitate that injury. But with it or without it, he can still drive like nobody else in the business. Well, we thought he might have a battle on his hands, didn't we, Anne? shows what we know.
It shows Brad Hall, Team Hall had the fastest heat in the 2nd run, so
yeah, it's all there.
Right in the mix.
And that consistency, the more times you do it, the more times you're likely to do it. Brad Hall 2nd in the standings, Hansi Lochner in 3rd, ahead of Mickey Vogt, Marcus Treichel, and Cedric Follador tied with Taylor Austin for 6th position. That's a great-looking start to the season for those 2 guys, particularly. Look at Adam Dobes, 2 World Cup starts out of 4 World Cups, and he's in 12th place. So he's having a pretty decent time of it as well. And that is it for Winterberg. It's not it, I'm afraid, probably for the wet weather, because the forecast for next week in Altenburg is not exceptional. However, we will have all 6 disciplines in action again. So stay with us on IBSF TV for all the action. Thanks for joining us on behalf of Anne van Nieuwenhuis and the IBSF TV crew. I'm Martin Haven saying see you next time. Bye for now.
So, dann zurück, wir werden jetzt noch Interviews gemacht und danach Siegerehrung. Bleiben Sie bei uns und das Ganze noch in einem würdigen Rahmen mit vielen Zuschauern an der Debatte mit einer Kinderreihe noch los. Dann geht die Kollegin München und die nächsten Dank.